Hello and welcome to our May virtual opening. My name is Emma Wilson. I'm delighted that you could join us. This month's feature artists are James Bonner, Rick Hamilton, Lori Fisher, and Joyce Grasso. You'll hear more from them in a few minutes. A few thank yous. Thank you to our artists who continue to inspire and create their beautiful works. And thank you to our clients who continue to stay in touch and support the artists and art gallery. Please follow us on Instagram at Portland Art Gallery. Also subscribe to our newsletter through our website, www.portlandartgallery.com, and follow us on YouTube with Radio Maine with Dr. Lisa Belisle. Dr. Lisa hosts engaging conversations with artists and members of our community, and those are released weekly. So now let's hear from our artists. Now I'd like to introduce artist James Bonner. James is a contemporary realist painter who received his formal training in art at the University of Arkansas in Little Rock, primarily under the late Al Allen. Influenced by painters Andrew and Jamie Wyeth, James taught himself how to paint with egg tempera and dry brush watercolor and eventually developed his identifiable style. Having a desire to experience what other artists experienced, including the Wyeths, James began visiting Maine in the 1990s and then moved here recently in 2020. He enjoys painting and drawing the often overlooked scenes that fade into the background of everyday life, describing Maine as beautiful and gritty all at the same time. Sounds like the perfect description of Maine. Please welcome artist James Bonner.
Hi, my name is James Bonner, and I'm very pleased to be represented this month along with other artists at Portland Art Gallery, and it was a great opening night, and this has been a really exciting month so far. So, something I'd like to say about the show this year. I pretty much focus mostly on oil paintings for this show, as opposed to my show last year where I focused mainly on watercolor, gouache, and some acrylic. And I just wanted to take the last year and delve into oil a little bit more, just to kind of get a little deeper into the painting and the process and the techniques, and I just feel like I can get a little deeper into the subject with oil. So the pieces I have in the show pretty much are from scenes that I have witnessed and experienced here in Maine. There is one piece that is completely out of my imagination, and that would be Looking for the Dawn Land. And that one pretty much came from a dream that I had, and from my subsequent walks and hikes that I have in the woods, the lovely woods around here where I live. So that one particularly manifested out of a dream, and kind of just really out of my imagination. But the other pieces particularly are from things that I see day to day here in Maine, and on my travels and my walks. And plus I've been coming here for years, so I've got an extensive photo collection and sketch collection of subjects and subject matter that I would love to paint. So I just look through some of those sometimes, and I always have subject readily here to paint in Maine. It's such a beautiful place, but it's also a tough place and a gritty place, and that's what I like about it. But I'd like to thank Kevin and Emma and everybody at the Portland Art Gallery. It's such an honor to be associated with them. They're so attentive to the artists, and really give great opportunities for the artists here. So just like to thank them, and just appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce artist Rick Hamilton. Rick's works are intuitive, emotive, and appealing depictions of places and people. You can hear the music, smell the sea, and jump into the dance line or just find a spot in a nearby cafe. But you will always be wearing cool clothes or fancy hats and be the best dressed in town. Rick captures moments of time with his use of color and gestures, bringing the works to life. Please welcome artist Rick Hamilton.
Hi there, I'm Rick Hamilton. I'm represented by Portland Art Gallery, and I'm here to talk about the show that's hanging at Portland Art Gallery right now. Most of the work in the show was done around late April. I do have a habit of waiting to the last minute to finish my work, and I think I feel there's something about that pressure that just drives my creativity, and I really thrive on that pressure. So I have a habit of waiting to the last minute, and I did that again for this show. And I do think that there's something about the change of seasons that inspired this show, and I hope that the work that I did will show the lightheartedness and maybe hopefulness that I feel during this time of year, and maybe at least in the colors that I used for these paintings. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to show here, and I love working with Portland Art Gallery. They're a great group of people, and thank you very much, and hopefully you get a chance to go see the show.
And now I'd like to introduce artist Lori Fisher. A colorist and process painter, Lori's work emerges through the engagement with her materials. She often comments that her works are rarely planned and preconceived. With her graduate degree in clinical psychology, Lori has been trained to look for and understand the factors that fundamentally make us who we are and who we might be. Just love that. Lori lives in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, nearby, and paints from a studio overlooking Portland's working waterfront. Maine's natural beauty, the landscape, the seasons, and constantly changing weather all inform and inspire the mood in the studio and the work itself. Please welcome artist Lori Fisher.
I've been really excited about this show at the gallery for the month of May, in large part because of the other artists that I was selected to show with. I think the work all looks pretty great together, and even better in person. So it was really cool to be at the opening. When I set out to paint for this show, I decided I wanted to paint all new work, and I was really craving consistency and simplicity for the most part. And I think that is in large part because of the world and my experience in the world at the moment, and probably how a lot of us are feeling. So for me, simplicity, really what that meant was not having every single painting necessarily be unique, and although they are and they end up that way, I wanted to sort of paint them all ongoing at once with a similar energy and intention. And for me, color is always the major focus, and the paint itself. And so I played a lot with value and shape and layering, a lot of more translucent layers, and I just had them all going at once, mostly on the floor. And there was a lot more freedom in this work, which is the other key thing that I really wanted to access while painting and in life right now. So that's pretty much where the body of work came from. Some of the bigger work, I actually am pretty into, both real small and also real big, and I want to even get bigger. And I think a lot of the big work for me taps into a physicality. So I end up having to use, my whole body to paint. And when I use my whole body to paint, it's just another way to expend some energy and soothe myself and soothe my insides, I think. So I think that's probably where that craving's coming from. A little bit looser than some of the work I've done in my art life. So yeah, hopefully that helps summarize. I did write down just a couple of words that I felt that this body of work kind of represents for me. I didn't go into it necessarily with all these words, but as I look at it, this is sort of what I feel from the work. Free, detached, color, weird, childlike, simple, honest, alive, and maybe even a little bit reckless in a good way. Anyway, I hope all that makes sense, and I hope that gives you a little insight into the paintings. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce artist Joyce Grasso. Joyce was raised in Portland, Maine, and attended college and graduate school in Connecticut. Settling in Fairfield County, she taught art at the Stamford and Greenwich Public Schools. Joyce has studied at the International Center for Photography, Museum of Modern Art, Greenwich Art Society, and the Silvermine School of Art. Throughout her career, she has received several awards for her photography and painting. Her photos and paintings are displayed in many private collections in Connecticut, Maine, Pennsylvania, New York, and California. She is a member of the Greenwich Art Society, the Stamford Art Association, and an accepted member of the Loft Artists Association, where she has her studio. Please welcome artist Joyce Grasso.
I'm honored to be a part of the Portland Art Gallery community of artists for the past 6 years. In this May show, I'm one of the featured artists along with Rick Hamilton, Lori Fisher, and James Bonner, and all of the other talented PAG artists. I feel fortunate to be part of this strong, creative, and supportive group. Thank you to Emma and Kevin and their hardworking staff. Every show has been beautifully curated in this light and airy gallery space. I'd like to share a bit about my background. I grew up in Portland, Maine, where my dad owned a shoe store downtown for 53 years. My mom took me to the butcher shop on Middle Street along the cobblestone streets. I went off to college in Connecticut and became an art teacher for 35 years and taught in an art magnet school where we created scenery for 3 shows a year. The bright, bold colors and joyfulness of my students' art was contagious in my second career. When deciding what work to create for this show, I asked Emma, abstract seascapes or abstract still life? Emma responded, both. I was thrilled. Though I have been concentrating on seascapes in the last few years, I've recently started creating abstract still life paintings. This is how I got through COVID. My at-home series grew out of my extensive time at home during the pandemic. Since we were no longer entertaining family and friends, I began to create Matisse Picasso-like abstract still lifes with table, flowers, and food. It was as if we were having company. I began slowly with various shaped vases and other vessels, and then added flowers, greenery, wine and drink, and some of my favorite foods. I feel a certain sense of joy as I add all of the components. It's like a puzzle as I choose specific colors and patterns that play well together, and I hope I project this when each viewer passes by. I feel there's a common thread between my seascapes and still lifes. How the exaggerated shape, form, color, and pattern relate playfully to one another. As for my seascapes, I traveled the boulevard around the estuary daily, watched the crashing waves on the rocks of Cape Elizabeth, looked down at the bay from Eastern Promenade, and walked the sandy beaches of Higgins, Pine Point, and Old Orchard. Many times we took the ferry to Peaks Island with a view of Portland's working harbor, fishing boats, lobster boats, tankers and sailboats all felt comfortable among one another. One of my favorite things to do was walk along the shoreline. I am awed by the many rock formations, textures, and wave patterns. I'm always challenged to explore the multitude of colors and shapes and how they speak to one another. I've tried to capture the changing wave patterns as they dance over the scattered rocks and sand. All of these visuals are etched in my memory forever. I interpret them in my own abstract, playful way, as I do in the still life pieces.
Thank you for joining us for the May virtual opening. Please stop in and see us at 154 Middle Street in the heart of the Old Port in Portland, 7 days a week, 10 to 5:30, or find us 24/7 at portlandartgallery.com. But until next time, be well, stay curious, and keep in touch. Thank you so much.